GMP regulations, but shifted to a focus about a decade ago to herbal medicine and immersed herself in wildcrafting, product making, and research. She's a member of the American Herbalists Guild. She co-founded the Herbal Research chapter to advance scientific study in plant medicine. Recognizing the growing demand for alternative therapies and regulatory compliance, she founded Compliance LLC to help small herbal companies navigate FDA requirements, operating remotely from her 60-acre farm in Bay City, Wisconsin, alongside her horses, dogs, cats, chickens, and plants, of course. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to
Thank you very much. I'm glad everybody's showing up. It's out. Yeah, this is an interesting topic. It's changing rapidly, as you guys can imagine, in the current administration. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to start out at this talk with just a little bit about me. I'm completely introverted, but I will talk about plants. It took a lot to get me up here, but I'm really happy to be here. What I'd like to do with this discussion, because it's a little dry, people just dislike it, and I would love to have some feedback as we go along. So if you have a question as I'm talking about something, raise your hand. If you want to share something, if you have just a comment you want to make or an experience, feel free to do that as we go along, because there's a lot of different areas I'm covering. And if we wait till the end, it's going to be kind of hard to shift gears back if that's what happens. Can everybody hear me?
I can increase the volume.
How do we do that on this thing?
No,
Maybe I should hold it closer.
you can hold it closer, I can go in.
Oh. I'll try to hold it closer. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history of herbal regulations specifically. They were regulated in 1938 under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, pretty loosely, and that was under the Dietary Supplements. And as everybody knows, the Dietary Supplement and Health Education Act was signed in 1994, and that really added regulation onto dietary supplements, which included herbal products. It's interesting to go back and read the Federal Register as far as what their thinking was when they did this, and there were a lot of comments that said these products shouldn't be regulated, but there were enough instances where they had some problems that they said, no, we're gonna do it. So herbal products got thrown into that. It really was more geared towards the talented and other supplements that we find on the counters, you know, the capsules. But because herbal products are part of that, they're part of a medicinal, then they do get thrown into that as well. So that was 1994. In 2022, there was the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act. And that really updated the whole cosmetics regulation. The reason why they've done this, if you just look at that chart, dietary supplements has grown exponentially. It is an enormous market. And with enormous markets, you get bad actors and you get a lot of problems when people are just out for money. And right now we know, I think that, I can't remember what it was, I want to say like someone did a study on looking at, I think they pulled products from Walmart and 40% of them were adulterated, not what it says on the label. So that's partly why they did it. There's also, in 1998, there was a problem where there was, I want to say it was like a detox tea that a couple of people were taking that landed them in the ER. And what they found was that what had said plantain on one of the ingredients was actually laced with digitalis. And so these people were in the ER with arrhythmias, and they were able to trace it back to the source. It was a company in Germany that was supplying the product. So yeah, there was just enough for them to say we're going to start regulating all these products, unfortunately, no matter the size. So this is a list that I made. I probably missed some things about what are the products that you guys would be making on a small scale. And I'm really focusing on small manufacturers at this point. So alcohol tinctures, salves, shampoo, lip balm, hydrosols, flower essences, tablets, capsules, toothpaste, and tooth powders, homeopathics, elixirs, herbal teas, oil soaps and lotions, essential oils. If there's anything, can you guys think of anything else? I was really trying to come up with everything. I think that's most of them. And really you can, a lot of these you can make, with the exception of homeopathics, I'm not sure about that. But you can make these, you know, from products that you harvest yourself. Where can you buy these? You can buy them from clinical herbalists, online retailers, brick and mortar retailers, farmers markets, from the vendors there, from manufacturers themselves, and from wholesalers.
You get flower essences. So you get flower essences.
Let's see.
Oh,
Yeah, I did.
I missed it.
Good catch, sorry. Okay, so once a product is introduced into commercial distribution, then it's subject to regulations. And identifying which regulation applies is crucial to ensuring that you're taking the appropriate path to make a legal product. With the exception of clinical herbalists that are selling products directly to clients are not subject to these regulations. And that's huge.
Is that true? I always had the impression that was Minnesota specific,
No,
that's true.
No, that's critical. Yeah. So what you want to do is you have to figure out what you have. And you have to categorize that by the legal definition that comes from the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So I'm going to go through a couple of definitions that will help you decide what your products are. So the first one is a dietary supplement, and this is not the full definition, but this is the main part. There's some other caveats to it that won't be important. So this is, and I put the reference there, 201 FF of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. It is a product other than tobacco that is intended to supplement the diet that bears or contains one or more of the following dietary ingredients: a vitamin, a mineral, an herb or other botanical, an amino acid, a dietary substance for use by man to supplement the diet by increasing the total dietary intake, or a concentrate, metabolite, constituent, extract, or combination of any ingredient described in the previous clauses. So that's your dietary supplement. And some of this might be basic for you guys, but this is where it really starts. A cosmetic are articles intended to be rubbed, poured, sprinkled, or sprayed on, introduced into, or otherwise applied to the human body or any part thereof for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance. And 2, articles intended for use as a component of any such articles, except that term shall not include soap. And soap is actually a consumer product. That's how they mean it. And I actually have, there's a definition for soap here. There are articles for which the bulk of the non-volatile matter in the product consists of an alkali salt, the fatty acids, and the detergent properties of the article are due to the alkali fatty acid compounds. So that you have to know the definitions, you know, in order to know where you're going to be regulated. At least you have a question.
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with what happened with the Cosmetic Act in 2021.
It got updated. Huge.
How is it relevant to us?
It might be. I will get into that. In some cases it is. Food. Articles used for food or drink for man or other animals. Chewing gum, articles used for the components of any such article. And the big one, drug. Are articles recognized in the official United States Pharmacopoeia, official homeopathic pharmacopoeia of the United States, or official national formulary or any supplement, any of them. Articles intended for use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man or other animals. And articles other than food intended to affect the structure or any function of the body of man or other animals. and articles intended for use as a component in those clauses, articles in those clauses. So this is where things get fuzzy. And so the next slide is is it a food or a dietary supplement? And it really depends on how you're marketing it. So I've taken that list that I created and tried to put them under which regulation it will fall under. So tinctures are dietary supplements. Pretty much, I mean, there's some thought out there that if you don't market it to treat, or not treat, but as a structure function claim, and we'll get into that, then you can put it under food. I think there's gonna be some pushback on that with tinctures. I think tinctures are just clearly not food. Elixirs, I think could potentially be a food. Again, if you're stating that it has any effect on the body, if you're doing it, even if you're saying for a, what would be it? Someone come up with an elixir that you would market it for. Yeah, okay, a cough medicine, that would be a drug.
What about like
Immediately.
calming, stress reducing?
What's that?
What about like stress reducing?
Stress reducing, calming would be a dietary supplement. So if you don't say that, then it could maybe be pushed over to a food. The minute you start saying that, then it becomes a dietary supplement.
What about something like a heart elixir? Like you naming the.
The function,
Yeah.
then you could, that would be a dietary supplement if it's not treating anything of the heart. If you're saying it slows your heart rate, then it would be a drug. So
Elderberry syrup?
if it, depending on how you're marketing it, are you marketing it for cold or for a sore throat? Then it becomes a drug.
Like you say, like it's immune tonic or immune.
You could do that. That would be a structure function if you're dealing with the immune system, supporting the immune system. I am not well versed in the full labeling. There are people that is all they do. And there are a lot of them. More people that do that than they do GMPs. I'm a GMP person more than anything. So it gets, there's a whole bunch of guidances out there on this. But this is where it gets real fuzzy. The minute you start saying anything about treating a condition, you can't, a headache, it's a drug. A cough or a cold, it's a drug. Anti-inflammatory, that's a drug. So it gets, you really have to know what you're saying. So once you feel confident that you have a dietary supplement, then you know you have to go to 21 CFR 111, and that is the regulation that that governs those products. Okay, so one thing I did notice, flower essences are considered homeopathics. So if anybody, and those are actually probably pretty easy to manufacture and sell, and there is a new guidance out on homeopathics, and it is risk-based, and my guess, I haven't looked at this, but my guess is that flower essences would be in the lowest risk category. They are not gonna have a problem with those. Okay. Food, culinary spices, salts, vinegars, you could easily get away with saying that as a food as long as you don't make the structure function thing.
So I know people do use like tinctures, I know bitters is this, that, people do use tinctures in like cocktails. So like.
You're not making a structure function claim then.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're not stating that it's for any, stress relief.
Mhm.
So then you could use it as a food, as a bitter,
Now,
unless you say digestion.
yeah, but if you were just saying like maybe the plant. You know what I mean, on the label.
Yeah, you can say the plant for sure, and you have to because that's part of the ingredient list.
Yeah, but I mean, whatever the name of the product is.
Sure, yeah. I think a lot of the bitters have been used as, for digestive support. So if you start saying digestive support, then it becomes a dietary supplement. There's one.
Yeah, I have a question. What did you come up with a kind of a creative name?
Mhm.
I have a remedy that I made for the gums and teeth
Mhm.
and mouth. And I called it Tooth Fairy. I made it for myself.
Well, if you're not stating that it takes care of cavities or
Yeah.
gingivitis, then you're fine.
That's okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But if we say it's for oral support.
Oral health, so
Yeah.
I think that would be okay. Yeah. Okay, so that's, it is difficult. But the one thing I would say is when you've made that, you've gone through the rationale for why you are putting it in one category versus the other, I would write that up and write up the rationale for why you believe that to be true and sign it. The one thing about regulations and the FDA is they are really big on documentation because that becomes the proof that something happened. And so if they come in and say, why do you think that's a food? Say, oh, because I have a rationale, I went through this process of trying to figure out what it is. And this is why I did it. So that goes a long way with them. Okay, so now a cosmetic or drug. Is there any way?
Is that too much?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I might have to mess this a little, it just seemed like you're gonna be in the dark soon.
Can I just clarify? So
Sure.
You're making the structure function claim, then it's dietary.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so cosmetics, salves, lotions, hair products, toothpaste, flower essences, I think could probably be in there at least externally. Salves, lotions, hair products, the same thing, basically. But how are you marketing it? Now, cosmetics do not have the structure function claim. They are either a cosmetic or they're a drug. So there's no, obviously there's no dietary supplement in there, but they don't allow structure function claims on labeling. So if you do have, and this is a big one, pain relief, you know, something for arthritis, joint like drug, they are a drug. You can't say that. Which is too bad because people have products that way. Any questions on those? Because it just seems like there's a lot of topicals, psoriasis, eczema, skin conditions, all of those would be drugs if you make that claim. And just,
So when you make the claim, is the verb helps with pain or
you can't say pain.
can't say anything?
No, you can't say any kind of pain. You can say it supports a function of the body. It supports, it promotes, I don't even know if you can say promotes sleep. You know, there are certain verbs, there's a guy out in Colorado, who has developed a software that you can purchase, I don't know the price on it. But you can run all of your labeling and your marketing and everything through it, and it will pull out verbiage that is suspect. Yeah, it's called Apex Compliance. And it's really become a big product and helped a lot of people for that. Yeah.
Yeah, when Horst Rechelbacher was alive, with the Beta Cosmetics, I was in the esthetician school.
Mhm.
And there was a really good book called The Consumer's Guide to Cosmetic Ingredients that we had to get in our training.
Mhm.
And that would just break down what you can't, figure out on the label or whatever, you need to know,
Right.
And then there was also a book called Not Just a Pretty Face,
Oh,
made
okay.
by nurses from the U of M. And just, what we are putting on our skin,
Yeah.
in cosmetic form. So again, it's called The Consumer's Guide to Cosmetic Ingredients.
Okay.
It's actually a manual. And then Not Just a Pretty Face, they're both recommended.
Yeah, and they're probably being updated too, to address some of the concerns of this new regulation. Yeah, thank you.
And I was gonna say with verbs, and maybe this has changed, this was a resource that Herbal Academy put out in 2023, and it might be different now, and you might go over it more too, but yeah, with some of the verbiage, they list kind of a free resource of like, yeah, verbs to avoid, prevent, cure, diagnose, heal, relieve, prescribe, treat, treatment, medicine, medicinal, and patient. And they list promote as one you can use instead. So they have support, balance, ease, promote,
Right,
you know,
yeah, support is a big one.
yeah.
Promote. And it probably is promote depending on what the next word is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's, and a lot of times you can go, just go to Whole Foods or something, just start looking at all of your supplements and see how they're labeling things. Some of them might not be right, but you know, for the most part, they are.
Would you go compare with your salves too?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Like if you're saying arthritis cream or something.
Can't say it.
You wouldn't say.
no, because then you're treating a condition.
Yeah.
And you couldn't say like soothing joint balm or something, because it has the word joint.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's that one's a tough one. Okay, so once you've kind of gone through that process of what your product is going to be and how you're gonna market it, and that's really the key. Then you identify the regulation that governs it. But any product can be designated a drug, no matter what it is, depending on how you market it and what you say it can do. And you don't wanna go there. You don't want there. Okay, so the food regulation, this is for people that are growing products. So there's 112, which is like raw agricultural products. And 117, which is the GMP for food production. And if you are in that, and I don't know how many people here are actually growing their own herbs to use in products. Then you really have to read through this document because it gets very specific as far as who is going to be regulated under this and what types of products they have and what kind of activities they can do. Because it gets really specific. You can wash, you can dehydrate, but you cannot cut. Because once you start cutting, then you become another process. And you really have to just go through it. This is not something that I know too much about, but I've been studying it because I was working with someone in Iowa and she was doing some of that on part of her one farm and state regulations became different. But there are some exemptions on that, that are money-based, so $1 million in averaging sales of that product over the 3 years. So $1 million per year, average over 3 years. Then it becomes exempt from registration and listing, and that is a facility-wide thing. You have to register your facility and list your products. But if you do fall into that exemption, then you are exempt from the GMPs.
It's less than $1 million.
Less than that, yeah. But again, once, most of the people I'm dealing with are not in that realm, but so then they can start looking at the cottage industry laws of their state. And there are a lot of leeway on that, and they're very different state by state. So it's really important to know what your state cottage industry regulations are, and the state just regulations in general.
So, kind of falling into this. If we're gonna have tinctures,
Mhm.
and a lot of people who grow their own plants.
Yeah.
And then they process them, so they look at that intolerant food.
Right, then it's a dietary supplement.
Right, and so this would not be part of the regulation
No.
system.
Oh, so next one. Next one is cosmetics. Okay, so cosmetics, but when this regulation got adopted, it's called the MOCRA, Modernization of Cosmetic Regulation Act. What they are requiring are facility registration and product listing. You have to list every product that you make with the FDA. They have certain regulations on labeling. I don't know specifically what they are, but there are a bunch of guidances out there for that. They also have GMP regulations now for manufacturing, and that is new. And they also have serious adverse event reporting. But the good news on this too is that there is a small business exemption. And it's the same one where if you have $1 million in sales that's averaged over the 3-year period, $1 million per year, averaged over 3 years, then you are exempt from the registration and listing requirement as well as the GMP requirement. And that's just for those products. It's not your whole business. It's just the products that fall under cosmetics. So I don't know, right now, I'm not dealing with people in that category. So again, we're dealing with people that are exempt. So you just have to do the labeling and have a serious adverse event reporting system. And
Wait, so if you're under that,
Yeah.
then you're exempt?
you're exempt from GMP.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, but again, you always have to look at your state regulations and make sure, you know, because this could mean that you can make it in your kitchen. Unless your state level says, oh, no, we want you in a certified kitchen, please. I think for cosmetics, they're more lenient on that. Okay, so the dietary supplement regulation, which is really the one I'm gonna focus on now, because nobody is exempt from this, no matter how small you are. They have said, anybody who is making a dietary supplement must follow GMPs. You also must register your facility. There are labeling requirements, and it's a big guidance document on labeling. There's a lot of things you can and can't say, and things that you have to have there if you're going to make certain claims. So then you have the GMP requirements for manufacturing and also the serious adverse event reporting. There's a lot of question when it comes to the state, well, do I need a certified kitchen? Do I have to make those in a certified kitchen? And it really depends on your state, if you need that or not, because it is under the umbrella of food, but you have to check with your state. If you are manufacturing in a certified kitchen, then you will for sure meet GMPs. It might be difficult to meet GMPs if you're not in a certified kitchen. You can't do it in your house. But that just won't work based on the requirements that they have. So the facility registration, this is something that is required. I strongly recommend that you don't do it until the very end of your process. Make sure you have everything in place for your products, because once you send a note to the FDA that you are making products that gives them the ability to come in, I'll say this probably again during this talk, but what's left of the FDA, my guess is they're not going to be too concerned about small herbal products companies. But I think there's a real chance that they're going to shove this onto the states to regulate it. And they already are in some places. I know Iowa does reciprocal inspections. So that's just my gut feel. Labeling. Okay, so I told you I wasn't going to talk about this, but here we are. So there is a guidance for industry, the Dietary Supplement Labeling Guide, and there are a lot of guidance documents out there. Right. So if you're concerned about how to label your dietary supplement, look that up. It will tell you an awful lot. If you are going to make a structure function claim, like we talked about, you have to notify the FDA within 30 days of putting it on the market. And then you have to have that box statement on it that says this has not been evaluated by the FDA. And then you also have to have proof of what claims you're making. So you have to have some kind of a file that you've gone through again and said, I'm going to make this claim and this is why I'm making it. And here's the proof that it's valid. It's a valid claim. Any questions on any of this?
So all of these regulations are only if you're going to sell products, but not being direct.
Correct.
Okay.
Clinical herbalists selling direct to their clients.
Okay, this is more.
Is this for
Selling
people
on Etsy or.
selling it on Etsy, selling it, yeah, I mean, online, there's a lot of people will think that I'm just selling it locally within my states, but you still have to meet this federal reg. You know, herb fairs, if you're selling at herb fairs, if you're selling online, farmers markets, if you sell it in one of, if you get a contract with Whole Foods, something like that, but a lot of the larger retailers will probably request, you know, certain sorts of, and not a certificate of analysis, but they just wanna know that you're meeting all these regulations, and so they'll require some kind of certification from you to say that you can do this. Otherwise, they won't carry this product.
I have a question, if we go back to making the product, and it said you have to make it in a certified facility.
Well, we'll get to that. It doesn't, the federal regulation does not say it has to be a certified kitchen or anything. It just says it has to meet these things. A home won't do it. You know, based on when you go through, when you see what's required.
Well, that's why I was asking if there's like local kitchens available. that
Yeah.
are certified that you can just go and make.
Sure. You bet. An incubator kitchen? Yeah. Yeah, the only thing with that, and I thought about this, like if you're making a tincture and it has to sit for, let's say a month. You have to have that space in that facility.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, once you get it bottled and labeled, then you could probably take it back home. But the actual activities have to occur in that kind of facility. Yeah. Yeah, for dietary supplements, not for cosmetics. Maybe. Not your state. Okay, so this is the GMP. These are the subheadings of, and the GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practices. cGMP is current, that's what the C means. So this is 21 CFR 111, if anybody wants to pull it up, and you use the Google. And it will pull up the regulation, and I don't know how many pages it is, but these are the subheadings. Personnel, facilities and grounds, equipment and utensils, production and process controls, quality control, requirements for components, master manufacturing record, batch production record, laboratory operations, manufacturing operations, packaging, labeling operations, holding and distribution, return dietary supplements, product complaints, and record keeping. So anything that's in red, they have specified that you have to have a written procedure for it. You must have. Oh, what was I gonna say is that, you know, when they were making this and revising the dietary supplement section of the Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act, they said they pulled a lot from food, which is true, but there's a lot that they pulled from drug as well. And so that's why you see this marrying, and it's like, I was trying to stay away from it until I saw master manufacturing record and batch record. It's like, well, that's directly from drug. And so they have really kind of pulled the things in, and that section of it is, you know, that's significant. So looking at, because you have the requirement for written procedures, I want to talk a little bit about the elements of a written procedure. Any questions on that? So when they say written procedure, you're kind of like, oh, okay, that's great, I just write up something, but there are certain things they like to see. I think a title block that has probably a document number, the revision of the document, an effective date, and an approval signature. So something that says, we wrote this document and we approve it. Then you might want to have a description, an objective, references, responsibility. One other thing I didn't add on here are definitions too. You might want to have some definitions for something that covers this procedure. Any supplies or equipment that are required. Then the procedure This is kind of the meat of your document, whatever the policy is or your process. Page numbering, I know this is silly, but you wanna have one of X, so you know how many pages are of your document, because if you just number them, you don't know if you've missed pages somewhere along the way. And then finally, a document history, so that you know what's happened to your document, that you keep some kind of a revision control, and then you know which revision was effective during what dates. Lisa's laughing.
Well, it's doable from what I understand, that it's not as bad as it sounds.
Right.
But if you're just listening to this, I'm gonna put it in another show.
Yeah.
I think it's like, no, petitioner.
Well, you know what, it's actually kind of too bad that I'm presenting this in April, it should be in October, when you're faced with the winter months, which is kind of a downtime for people that are in production, if you have your own products, you know. This is when you do it, is in the winter, and you just sit down and honestly, the hardest document that you write is the first one. Once you get the first one done, then it's kind of like, oh, change the title, change the description, you know, but the bulk of it is there, and you just have to kind of fill in the pieces then. The other thing that's super, super important is you should not just sit down and say, okay, I need this in the procedure and this, and I'm gonna write it in. Go backwards and say, this is what I do, so write down what you do. Because it's much worse if you have all these procedures that you don't follow, because you can't follow them, because you wrote them to meet the regulation, but there's no way you can do that. So it's really important to write down what you do first, and then maybe put it into a form, you know, that meets these other requirements. Yeah, actually, it might be. I mean, I was thinking about that this today, and wow, I wonder if you could start using AI to write some of this. Yeah. Okay, so personnel, facilities, equipment. This would cover training, and this is where your documents come in. Training is read the document and say you understand it. And then you have a training log for that procedure and for that, whatever section you have to be training on. Pest control, contamination in your facilities and cross-contamination. Water is a big thing, plumbing, I have a bathroom, maintenance, gowning, calibration of equipment. What's the biggest piece of equipment you use? Scale. Yeah, how do you know it's right? Yeah. So there's kind of an easy way you could do this. If it's a digital scale, you could buy for less than $100 weights. They're calibrated weights, and you figure out what range you're operating in, you know. Maybe it's up to how many kilograms, you know, whatever. So you have a weight at 1 kilogram and it works, and then you have a weight at 5 kilograms and it measures correctly, and you're only operating within that range. And you check that once a month and you document it, that you checked it. It's an easy way to do it. And that's probably, you know, everybody's gonna use a scale. Thermometer, if you happen to use a thermometer for something, same thing, how do you know that it's accurate? You know it's measuring properly. Okay, maintenance, gowning, clothing. Do you want to have people wearing gowns, non-shedding material? Do you want to have people wearing gloves? There was one, I'm laughing because there was one of the companies I was working at, we were getting these little packaged pressure dials, and I can't remember where we got it from, but we were kind of sorting through and inspecting them, and inside the package was a false fingernail. It's like, oh. So, you know, you just want to make sure that you're thinking about where things might become contaminated and putting a lid on that. And so that comes into either gowning or hygiene or something, make sure people are washing their hands, things like that. Quality control, now this is a requirement through the regulation. There has to be an independent quality control person. I have some thoughts on it. What these people do is they perform checks, they do independent checks, they do material review and disposition if you have any product that doesn't meet specification. They review and approve all documentation, they approve suppliers. They review and approve the master manufacturing records and the batch records prior to release. And so that's it's difficult for some people to do that, especially if there's one person. So I don't know, I've kind of thought maybe you could get around some of that. It might be difficult. I've also thought maybe if you hired somebody to have on a Zoom, certainly one of the big things is that you have to have somebody checking your weights as you do it and checking your additions as you do it. A second verified check. So that becomes very difficult when you're doing it by yourself.
Again, if you're under $1 million
No,
a year, this doesn't apply.
no, there's no exemption. Once again, right? And the final release of product, here's another thing I was thinking about. Okay, so let's think that you have a jar of your bulk tincture. And you get a call and you're like, I need a 3 ounce. Okay, I'm not gonna slap a label on it, throw it up, throw it. That would not work. Because you have to have, your master manufacturing record has to be for a lot size and a product size. So you have to, if your batch size is one bottle, then how do you approve it? And you also have to keep a retain of one. You suddenly doubled your production that never gets sold because you have to have a retain of a lot to keep on hand for, I think it's 3 years. So that's kind of a just-in-time shipping that doesn't work here. So
What's the reason for?
it's required. It's in case something happens that they can go back and test. So you have to keep a retained sample. So if your batch size is big, it's a fraction of your lot. But if it's one, then it's just, you just doubled your lot size in order to keep that. It's just not, it's not very feasible. Production and process control. So requirements for components. Botanical ingredients that we use, most of them, I can't think of anything that is not considered safe. Generally recognized as safe, which is the GRAS designation. There may be some that are questionable right now. I know Comfrey has had some issues with FDA. I think some of the mushrooms may not have gone through this process yet. I think cordyceps possibly is not either. They may not be recognized as safe. If you do have a dietary ingredient that hasn't been on the market, which is really kind of rare in this situation because I think a lot of people are using these historical uses of nuts. And this is really more for synthetic things. But you do have to have, if you have a new dietary ingredient that has not been on the market, then you do have to send it into FDA, send an application into FDA as getting approval for a new dietary ingredient.
Did you say cordyceps?
I don't believe cordyceps is generally recognized as safe at this point.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I know. But it, I would have to check that again, but I thought I had read somewhere that it wasn't, but yeah.
What about hemp?
Hemp, I think that's okay. Without THC. Yeah. But that would also make, maybe state regulations would kick in there as well. I don't know. Cause I know that, you know, for a while there was the CBD was the big thing. And then states had their own regulations on that.
I think Minnesota's one of like our states or it's not really one state.
Oh, as a food ingredient?
I don't know how I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, yeah, that's where you really do have to go to the state.
I think it is because I think it's one of the agricultural laws.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it gets really confusing. It can. Always, don't be afraid to ever pick up the phone and call people. That's what they're there for.
How does this work for like China or something, like tea pills,
If you had what,
tea pills or something? I'm just curious.
coming from China?
Well, New York company, but yeah, I think they all come from China.
Sorry, I can't.
Yes, from China.
Yeah, well, okay, you'd have to, well, we'll get into that. You have to, number one, you have to approve a supplier. So if you're purchasing product, you have to have some kind of an approval process that why you feel the product coming from this company is good. But you also have to do an identity check. And, identity check has to happen. They are very strict about that. And how you do that is usually a chemical test. You have to send it out to a lab, have it done. And they'll also check for probably purity and purity, composition, and identity. So, and they'll also check for microbial contamination, you know, various things. But that is, this is where the problems come, and they're actually seeing the biggest problems coming from product shipped from overseas. On either side. You know, so. Alcohol, always check with your state on that, because as a non-beverage use, you gotta know how it's being regulated. Bottling and labeling, and your labels, not labeling is usually the content, labels are the products. But you have to have specifications for all of these things, all of them. If you grow your products, if you well craft your products, things are a little bit different, and actually, I think things are better. Because you have control over them, and you know what you're getting. Yeah, pretty strange. So, here's a sample raw material specification of a purchased dietary ingredient. So this is something that could work. I'm not saying it's perfect, but these are kind of the things you think about when you have a raw material specification for something that you're buying. You want to maybe, I just put these risk levels on because you might want to categorize your products as far as what might be a high risk versus a low risk. And who have you approved as a vendor? What is the vendor description part number? Do they have a certificate of analysis? It's not going to, they will not accept that. The FDA won't accept someone else's certificate of analysis for identity. You still have to redo it. How much you purchase. So what happens is once this is your specification, which will tell you what you need to have done for this product, and I didn't fill anything in, but it can also then become your form for proof of what you received. Once you fill this out for the amount that you purchased and who it came from, then what their lot number was, then you assign it a lot number, and so then you start your traceability. Traceability is really big. And then whether or not it was, you know, what the attributes were, did it pass, fail, did you accept the lot, did you reject it? And if you reject it, you have to segregate and label it as rejected so that it cannot get into your manufacturing stream. And that's where QA will come in and say, what are we gonna do with it? Is there anything that we can fix it? Can we sort it? Can we still use it? And if not, then we'll disposition it somehow. But that has to be all documented, how you do that. And then I recommend keeping a routine sample, same thing, you know. So
You keep full size routine samples,
you take what?
keep full size,
For the raw materials?
when you retain a sample.
Well, for the raw materials, you would keep this, the same amount that you would need to do a chemical test,
Okay.
just so long as you can redo the testing if you had to. Okay, is that the right time? 7:58? Okay, so growing and wildcrafted dietary ingredients. This is where I think things can be really cool and fun. There are good agricultural collection practices that Abbott has written up. They are really, really nice. And these are things that you should be considering when you harvest product. And I actually have some samples of that. One other thing that has actually become another kind of hot button for the FDA is heavy metals. They want some testing for heavy metals. And some plants are actually collectors of some of the heavy metals, and so if you look under phytoremediation, those are the plants that are going to accumulate heavy metals, and this can be extracted out. Also consider. Also water activity, which can promote microbial growth. Right.
I got a question just before, I got a question about like wildcrafting.
Yep.
You know, so if you're wildcrafting and then you have a field, and then, I mean, you have to go right to your facility, you know what I mean, like, how does that process?
Well, think about what you're harvesting and how sensitive it is. Like, can you keep it in a bag without it deteriorating? When are you going to do the actual processing of it? I think you're fine as long as what the product is in the stage that you bring it into your facility. So you can do the processing elsewhere if it's under that 112. You know, but here's some forms that I actually use these for myself, and I don't sell any products, but I love to have a record where I harvested product and what the conditions were and anything that was notable about it. And in fact, I bottled up a tincture that I had made, and I wanted to go back and see what happened, and I'd forgotten to make one of these for that particular product, so that was kind of a problem. So I don't know, these are things, one of them is grown, cultivated, and one of them is wildcrafted, but you know, things to consider: do you have a license if you're on public lands? Do you have permission from the owner? If it's not, are you doing it ethically? I mean, there are things to consider with that. How much did you gather in a certain area? What was the location and where you got proximity to herbicide and pesticide used for toxic plants? And then if that's possible, I'll take a picture of it. And then standing and then, you know, there. But a lot of this is also covered in that good agricultural collection practices. I've got all that stuff back there on that table if anybody wants to look at it. As well as the regulations. Master manufacturing record. Okay, so this is what people will say is your recipe for how to make something. It's a little bit more involved in that. This is required for each unique formulation of dietary supplement in each batch size. So that's where the batch size comes in. I've always thought you might be able to make one, like if you had 3 different sizes of bottles of the exact same thing, you might be able to put that on one record. But they are specific about batch size. You have to have in-process quality checks that while you're making this. And these are also checks for the measuring and weighing of ingredients. Every time you weigh something, you have to have somebody else check you. Every time you pour something in, you have to have somebody check it and say that it was the right amount. You have a listing of each ingredient that they use. And the other thing that's really important is you have to have at certain stages that make sense, a theoretical yield versus the actual yield. So if you were to make this perfectly, this is what you would expect that you would be getting at this point in time. And this is what I actually got, and so you have to have a comparison of those numbers. And if they don't fall within a certain percentage that you define, and it has to be relatively close, something happened. Something happened in your manufacturing that you're, either someone didn't measure something right, you didn't put the right amount in, or you left something out, you had some evaporation, but there's a reason that you are not getting the right yield from what you should have. Any questions? Oh, sorry, I'm trying to. So here's just a sample. I mean, again, I just made it up, so it could be not applicable for what you're doing, but you would have a purpose. The purpose is to specify the requirements for manufacturing this product. And definitions and what your product name is, what the strength is, what your batch size is. And what this is for I think this is for a bulk extraction. So you would have, I mean, because most of the time you're gonna make probably a simple extraction. And that product might go into 3 different products. Because you might do another simple, or you could make a blend, but you'd be pulling from that same one. So you would want a batch record just for that, just for that bulk product. And then you would know everything that went into it and what happened to it. And then you'd also know where it goes, because everything gets a lot number. Every product coming in, every, in process product, and then your final. And you have the traceability of where it's gone. I know this gets probably confusing if you haven't done this. But you have to be able to, from a final product, you have to know what went into it at each step. And be able to pull that batch record of how it was made. So, your batch record. Created every time you make a batch following your MMR. So the MMR is the recipe, quote unquote. The batch record shows that you did it according to those instructions, and it gets a batch roll out number. A lot of times these are some form of a date, because dates don't, repeat them. Provides a traceability, theoretical yield versus actual. If any of these things, if you don't meet a specification that you've already defined, it gets rejected. And it doesn't mean that it's thrown away, but it goes through a process of what happened, is it still usable, how is it usable, something like that, but it all has to be documented. Sample book, batch record, same thing, initials and date. A lot of times, any step that you do, initial and date, who did it, and when did you do it? Proof that it is done.
Okay, so tinctures would fall under dietary supplements, and dietary supplements have 0 exemption to doing this.
Correct.
Okay, so if you're gonna sell any tinctures online or anything like that, you would have to follow this.
Yes, you have to have some, and again, they don't say how you have to do it. But the best thing is to know what the regulation is and to be able to defend what you're doing against it, because you put a lot of thought into it. They're pretty good at that. I mean, if you can defend what you've done and it meets regulation, they'll be okay. Laboratory operations. Now, I don't think anybody's gonna have a lab in their facility, so you will be contracting that out. Same thing though, as it would be like any other vendor that you would approve, have a document why you approved a certain laboratory facility or why you for certain tests. So that's also required. Manufacturing operations, these are documents that you would want to make sure that you have activities that prevent cross-contamination and contamination. Before you do a batch, you want to make sure that you have everything cleaned from any previous batch, that there's no possibility of anything from another batch getting into your batch. And all of that has to be documented and proven. Also, your sanitation materials, this is where food comes in again, making sure that you have the proper equipment and surfaces, stainless steel, That's a good thing. You have to make sure that if you have something in process, that's just sitting, like some kind of a sub-assemblies or in process material that is labeled appropriately, it has a lot number, it has a quantity, has who put that in there and sign and date labels. Cleaning process and materials are another thing about manufacturing operations. Yeah. Packaging and labeling. If you have 10 labels that you need to put on tincture bottles, you have them issued under 10 and you have to have it documented that you only received 10. That you don't have some extra labels that somehow get slapped on another bottle. That's a reconciliation. And quality does that inspection. Packaging, same thing as specified in the MR. And you know, bottles, you think bottles are no big deal, but they are touching your product. So that's another thing where you approve a supplier of bottles. And the other thing is, which I've noticed, those childhood caps for dropper bottles have become a little bit big, maybe because of the alcohol. Holding and distribution. If they're in bottles, in whatever stage they're at, you have to make sure that they're not going to degrade based on the environmental conditions, based on the container that they're in. Same thing with the retained samples. The retained samples that you pull from your final product have to be in the packaging that they are sold in. And you know, you don't want to put them in some condition, maybe high humidity or high temperature. And same thing with in process, make sure that they're up off the ground and in conditions that won't degrade. You know, maybe if you put a tincture in at a really high temperature, you have some problems. Returned dietary supplements, you do have to have a policy for that, and this kind of written document. When they come through the door, I don't know if anybody's ever had a returned dietary supplement. When they come in the door, they have to be segregated and labeled as such, and you have to have an investigation as to why they were returned and a disposition. If nothing was wrong with them and you can prove that, then they can probably go back into your inventory. But again, it all has to be documented, and this is something that your quality assurance person would do. Product complaints, same thing, you have to have a policy for that, how you handle product complaints. One thing that I think is very interesting is there's a database, anybody can make a complaint to the FDA on any product. And so at times you can go into that database and just do a search on your product and see if anybody's made a complaint on it. There are times when there are, you know, and that is actually where FDA, because they're not doing pre-approval or anything of these of the dietary supplements, they watch those. And if they start getting a lot of complaints, they start an investigation. And that actually did just happen with this diamond shrooms product, some kind of gummy mushroom product, and people were, I can't remember what the problem was, but they did a big investigation, and they did they sent out a notice. I think they had to pull inventory. So then if you do actually have a product complaint that does become a valid complaint, then you have to look at where it went and possibly do a recall or look and see what we have, what it could be multiple lots, and so you have to somehow segregate that and figure out what you're going to do with it. Okay. Records, the records that you make, and you make a ton of them as you're building product, those have to be available for FDA review. And they have to be kept 2 years past distribution of the product. They have to be original, but they can be photocopies or scans as long as they're retrievable. And if you have any electronic records, there is a regulation that they have to meet. It's called 21 CFR 11. Some of the software that generates those has to be validated. So most people won't have electronic records, I don't think. Adverse event reporting. This is also a requirement. For food, it is, there's a safety portal, safety reporting portal, and plus there might be some state requirements. We have to solve them, make sure that we know what that is. And for dietary supplements and cosmetics, you have to report this on MedWatch, Form 3500A, which is also the same one that they use for medical devices. So it really is cumbersome because there's a lot of stuff you are just not gonna fill out, but this is, they haven't updated that. Okay, resources. There's a lot. I know I covered a lot, and I guess if I were to make any recommendation, if you still want to do this, start small, start really small, start with one product, you know, and maybe start with a cosmetic. You could even start with a wholesale product, but the problem with wholesale is that, you know, if you sell something that could then be repackaged as a dietary supplement, then you can repackage your supplement. So, and also, people that are using your products, they might get, you know, they might have some requirements on your products too, as far as testing. So there's a lot of FDA guidance documents, a lot, and they are really good. They are really good. American Herbal Products Association, Abbott. They have some things that are free, some downloads that are free. It is an expensive organization to join for small business. But it's a very good organization for these kinds of resources. American Herbalists Guild, I think the stuff that they have on businesses might be behind the membership. I'm not positive, but I just looked at it and I think it is. State websites, farmers market organizations, next week on this day, they are presenting a webinar on the same stuff for farmers markets in Minnesota. I would recommend joining that. It's also a Zoom webinar that it's free, but you have to sign up for it. Local government offices, your county boards, AI search engines. This has actually become a great thing. If you want to say, what are the regulations for this in Wisconsin? Boom, it sends you like 5 links. It's actually really been very handy, and that's relatively new. So avoid getting overwhelmed if you can. Don't look at the whole thing, but just start small and start with a couple things. I do offer free GMP checklists from the darkskycollective.com, which is a website I'm under. And with that, I've taken the whole GMP and just broken them down into each section, and then just little things. Do you have the document for this? You know, okay, I might need one. You know, just so it's a little bit easier to deal with. Because otherwise, when you read this, you're just like, oh my God, this is just really out of control. The future, that's anybody's guess, honestly. I think, you know, the FDA is really curtailed. They were already having trouble doing inspections, and now they didn't even admit it, they can't do it. So the risk has been reduced. But again, I do think they're going to shove the responsibility for inspections onto the states. How can the states deal with it? I don't know. And then I haven't given up hope that they might offer a small business exemption for dietary supplements, or maybe some type of categories of dietary supplements. They can't do it all. There's no way. I mean, they have bigger fish to fry. Unless there's a problem. And that's always gonna be the case, you know, unless they have plantain coming in as digitalis. Unless they have some people dying. And they did have some people, I think, was it the King of Pharmaceuticals that had the humping baths with the teething rings? You know, and it happens, but I have to believe that the people that are like on their groups on the ground making it are just, they're making better products. But that's my feeling. Questions? I'm done, thank
I
you.
mean, historically, maybe let's call it the last 2 or 3 years that we're aware of. You know, how much wasn't the FDA that was investigating small businesses that were making product? Or somehow I actually got it from the tobacco, what is it, tobacco, firearms, and alcohol division. And then that was, I thought, they were actually somehow looking into.
For the alcohol?
The next was story about Susan, even her company, Well Herbs, was that she sent it to, where she was selling alcohol of the lines, tinctures. You know, they were the ones who would do all of this.
You know, what I've looked into with alcohol is that there are loopholes when it's non-beverage use. So it's not a beverage. And so the amount can't cause the harm that regular alcohol beverages can. I think I've even seen this down to the county level as far as how it's dealt with. But that is something that for sure you would contact your state, contact your local. But I think the federal was not. When I looked at that, they had a total exemption for medicinal use.
Who's the Well Herbs?
No, FDA. But maybe it's alcohol. Actually, from them. Yeah. But that's, I'll have to ask them about that. But she had some larger quantities too. Yeah.
This was a shared study, because you know, talking about, you know, products that aren't really on the agenda. Mainstream agenda, you know, these weird ones.
Yeah.
Not very solid, so they weren't mainstream.
Right.
So they were kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have a question? No, you, yeah,
I did. This is kind of a silly,
no silly questions.
but all these regulations have everything to do with selling.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah,
So if you don't sell it,
correct.
but if you wanna, can it be donation based?
Yeah.
The state of Minnesota, if you give something away as a business, it's still considered selling. So just be aware that that's a state rule,
Okay.
that we can't give things away, it's still considered selling.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, really, it's a very strange rule, yeah.
I have 2 questions. One, are there any requirements about really looking teachers and things that you are herbalists giving foods with money?
You know, I don't, no, they have exempted clinical herbalists. Now, would you want to do that? Yeah, I mean, you would wanna have maybe some kind of a lot control, what it is, when you made it. You know, things like that, just for general quality purposes, but they have not. No. It's part of the herbalist client. Privilege.
And then my other question is there any regulation around like making claims for classes, like real, I'm doing a class on herbs for pain. Like, is that not okay? Or-
I don't know, Lisa, do you know anything about that?
There are some now with teaching, if you're not supposed to like teach about a specific herb and what it does and be selling the product. Like if you're
Right.
doing both teaching and selling, it's like, oh, conflict of interest, because you're saying like, oh, this does all these great things and how convenient, I'm selling it, you can buy it. And that is kind of a more recent change, I think, too.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think that's FDA
Is it FDA?
level. I'm pretty sure.
I'm trying to think.
So if you were doing classes like herbs for pain and then you had those
For sale.
options available that are able for me, so kind of.
Well,
Or might be.
if the class was open to the public as opposed to a class, I don't know, I mean, especially if you're saying it's for pain, then that's a drug. That's not even a doctor's supplement. So that, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Sorry.
So could you say like teach a class about these different herbs online and then you could have, you can buy a custom blend, and so it would be like a consult where they could like buy the blend. But then you would have to, you know, speak with them to come up with the blend, and then it's a consult, so then you're still a clinical herbalist and not retail selling.
If it was like between you and a client,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like say we taught a class online that people could learn about the products,
Mhm.
right? And then they say, oh, you know, I learned about this, I would really like this, then they can reach out to you and say, I would like to buy this. But then you're in that transaction, you know, you're asking, well, what are you using it for, do a little maybe consult or something, and then you can send it to them.
if you're a clinical herbalist, I think you could,
Yeah, I think it's only a problem if it's like, well, this is my line of products. So yeah, here's this one off the shelf that I already have this name. But if it's like, oh, you went to my class, you want to come consult with me, I'm
Yeah.
creating this custom blend for you. Great, you can totally
but
do
I
that.
would keep that talking. So then that shows the client relationship. It's, you know, you can have the online class, it's the biggest issue right now are websites that make claims, because they have access to that 24/7. And they have AI pulling those claims out.
How does somebody become a client? You know what I mean, so they take a class from you.
Well, you
You
would,
have to fill out some sort of thing on maybe, or
yeah, you would have to have something written saying that you consulted with them and that this then became, she was looking for expert advice from you.
what if you add this honors or behind a like members private section where it's like they said, yes, I have been given this by herbs.
Well, that is becoming something where it becomes, what is the term? Private membership, yeah. Yeah, and I think the jury's still out on it. I think people are doing it. And then you're not in the commercial marketplace really. They are purchasing a membership. This is something people are trying. I don't know how it's working, but again, the resources are not there to follow up on stuff like this, so.
Right, yeah, so if you teach class and you say, hey, yeah. Go log in, become a member.
Yeah.
You know, you just check a box. say,
Yeah.
blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
All files.
Mhm.
Probably.
Mhm. Yeah, I think people are trying that. People are also trying, I would just wanna purchase the bottle with nothing in it, but there's something in it. I heard that one. Oh, good luck on that one, I don't know. I don't know about that. So it's again, it's really in flux and I don't know where it's gonna end up, but I think enforcement right now is pretty thin. Because it has to be, they just don't have the people to do it.
So Ann, you're not thinking that websites where they're all, I sell tinctures, solvents, whatever, the names of the plants is not the problem, it's saying this is a great remedy for musculoskeletal.
Yeah.
Just the name here is.
Right, yeah, yeah, just the name is fine.
Even that would be a dietary supplement, right? If you have it on your website, the herb, you could say, and sell these herbs, but that's to be under the tinctures.
It would be, I think you could make the case. Again, you would have to write up a rationale for why you're not making a claim. People just wanna take it.
Orders for something like the selling. Yeah, it's, you know, the teachers that, you know,
Yeah.
work, you know, just kept pulling it, and so she was just selling it on the website. So also questions.
Yeah, no, that's, yeah. Some people, I know Amazon got loose, they started pulling product. Because, well, they had trouble, as in Walmart,
They got a little of us.
because they were selling product that wasn't, meeting the regulations.
I have a quick question, sorry. What if you talk about the historical use of the plant, like this was historically used for this next?
You can say that, and I've seen that a lot. Is it, you mean on your product or like on your website or?
Yeah, like on the listing. As advertising, instead of like saying it treats this, right?
Yeah.
The direct thing that you can say, well, historically it's used for this.
I see that a lot. I haven't seen it ever come up in a warning letter or anything from some, so.
And then just a follow-up question, if you didn't want to advertise a lot on your page, but you posted or like a blog post where you went into more detail. Would that be okay? Like if it weren't advertising on the page, but it gave you more information about the plans and why you chose them and what they do.
Oh, I don't know. I think if they can access that, I think it would be suggestive, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say. It's, you know, again, I haven't seen anything on the warning letters, specifically stating things like that. Usually it's, but if it's something that, you know, flags them, and then they come in to do an inspection, then they get, that's where the, you know, the issues arise. But it's just something, you know, sometimes it's better to just be under the radar, you know?
I had two questions. So one, what if you're creating product for another herbalist? So like where I'm a herbalist and I was like, oh, I know this is a good herbalist, I want a product. Take that. I mean, is that,
And they're using it for clients,
yeah, using it for.
then that's fine, yeah.
So, and even it was, it's like unherbalist, clinical herbalist. What falls under that? Did it go like naturopath fall under that?
I would look at your
Acupuncture, yeah.
state regulations, I think would cover that, but the FDA has said, you know, a professional.
Okay, and then, for cosmetics. What if you're selling the process state marketing? Is that fine? Is that, because all this is like FDA and everything.
Yep, no, I mean, it would be, if you're under that $1 million.
Yeah.
Then you're exempt from cGMP, no GMP. And you're exempt from, this registration and listing your facility. Yeah, so.
I have a few questions. So when I first started making tinctures, I had contacted the FDA and they're like, we don't do oversight, talk to your state. So I went to the state pharmaceutical board in Minnesota and they're like, oh, we don't look at that.
Yeah.
Whatever. We, you know, kind of thing. Not those
Right,
words,
right.
but basically they're like, well,
Yeah.
so what I'm finding out though is that it is regulated by the agricultural, not really
Right,
by,
in Minnesota,
yeah.
Yeah.
And I happened to find that out with farmers market, because they got concerned and they were like, well, you can't sell here unless you have certification, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh.
yeah,
So they contacted the agricultural board, it had nothing to do with pharmaceutical board, nothing with FDA, it was agriculture.
wow.
I thought that was-
Is food under agriculture here in Minnesota?
Yeah, the FDA handles food.
That's why.
They handle the cottage food licenses.
Yeah,
Which is probably what.
That's
I
why.
have a cottage food plans, and when I did all that. You know, some features or supplements, and it's a whole different category.
yeah,
But then if you make it with alcohol, then it's.
Right.
Everybody, it's, they think you're gonna drink like this one ounce and you get drunk.
I know.
No.
yeah. That's why I use the term non-beverage use.
Oh, okay.
Then they have a better understanding. It's like, this is not a beverage. The dosage is a dropper, you know?
Right.
So once they understand that, that usually clarifies that. Depends on who you get. I mean, that's sometimes you get people that. No, not too much. So I don't know. I hope this has helped.
Yeah.
It is a lot. It's, again, if you really starting out with cosmetics would be a great thing. Just cosmetics you could do pretty easily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, Rachel, are they gonna have access to the PowerPoint?
That's up to you, Anne.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I can do that, or I can.
I mean, yeah, I have the copy from, yeah.
Right.
All right.
What's that?